Welcome back to the IE427 garage, everybody. Well, today we're working on the wiper system for our Mark IV prototype, and I've been putting this off. I just hate the wipers. I was tempted to put them up for sale, hoping someone would buy them, but no, we're gonna put them on. The owner wants them, and I've already started the process, but let me show you kind of some of the stuff we've got here. So we've got the wiper wheel box right here. I've already got one kind of temporarily mounted on the car. Then there's a rubber washer that seals to the top of the body. We've got the rubber angled bushing that goes underneath the cowl. And then we've got the angled trim piece that goes on top of the cowl. And then there is a nut, of course, that's already on the wheel box itself, and a couple of wiper arms. It comes with stainless tubing, but it has been my experience that the stainless tubing that Factory 5 provides you for this kit is incredibly hard to work with. It does not bend well, it does not like to be formed, it does not like to be flared, and so I just stay away from it. There are usually pieces of their fuel system tubing, if you've upgraded the fuel line on your car, that you can use right here. This is, I think, a 5-foot length that we're using, and that is the 5/16, I believe, tubing. This is the 5/16 tubing, and it is 60 inches long, so it's a 5-foot piece. So we're going to use this for our wiper tubing, and I've already cut one piece. I've got it right here. It's about 7 1/4 inches long. I'm using the factory flare on the one end. I'm going to go ahead and flare the other end, and then I'm going to have to put a slight curve in the tubing in order to make it fit against the wiper motor and the wheel box itself. So the wiper motor is down here. You can just make it out right there. And then the bottom of the wheel box is up inside here. And like I said, I've already got the one just kind of loosely mounted on here. And that was just so I could get my measurement. Now, if your painter makes those holes for you, just know that you're probably going to have to enlarge the holes a little bit somewhere. Because, just as a for instance, we drilled these with the template provided by Factory 5. However, they are a little bit close to the windshield. So we're going to end up enlarging the holes this way to get the wheel box just a little bit farther away, so we're not sitting right on top of the rubber for the windshield. So I've already done that over here, and it came out pretty nice. I'll do the same thing here. And what I'm using is just a rotary rasp tool it's actually for my air grinder, but I use it in my 90-degree drill right here. This one is tapered, so it's nice because even if the hole's a little small, you can use the end of it just to enlarge the hole a little bit and make it longer. In this case, it's just about the perfect size for those wheel box mounts, but we're just taking that and we're cleaning up that front edge just to give ourselves a little bit more room. So once I get this piece flared on the other end and bent so it fits into place, we'll test fit that, and then we'll go ahead and we'll cut another piece using the factory flare that we still have on this end of this tubing. We'll cut that piece and flare it on the other end, and then what we'll end up doing is we'll cut another piece about 4 or 5 inches long, and that'll go on the far end so that the cable can continue to be inserted into that tubing and move back and forth and still be protected. And then we'll end up putting a vacuum cap on the end of that to seal it all off. But let me go ahead, I'll get that piece kind of formed into place and get it set into place, and then I'll catch up with you after I get that one. I'll see if I can get the camera in there so you guys can see what it looks like, and then after that we'll work on the next piece. All right, so you can see here, I've probably got a little too much bend than I absolutely have to have, but it works. So when I pull it out, I'm take some of that bend out, but if not, I think it'll work just fine. Remember, before you flare your final end of your tubing, to get your nut on the end of there so that you can get it to go on the motor housing. Now that nut is included with the wiper assembly, so make sure that goes on before you get carried away and flare the opposite side. And then I've got it into the wheel box over here with the cable extending out past it. Now you've got to thread this on and kind of get the nut over here started first, and then push your wheel box up into place. If you try to insert the tubing while the wheel box is up in through the hole in the body, you're never going to get it to go in. So you have to get all that kind of squared away first, get it in there, and then from this one to the second one, you'll see you can get the tubing into the first wheel box as long as you have the clamping mechanism on the wheel box loose enough, and then you can measure for your second one. All right, so I've got the second piece of tubing in place. You can see up here I've got the wheel box loosely installed, and I've got the bracket on the bottom that holds the tubing in loose as well, just so that I can get it fit. It isn't really important to get this one bent, because it's really a straight shot from one wheel box over to the other. You can bend it, but I've never found it really necessary. And the same thing with this last piece that we're going to put on here past the cable. I've never bent a piece there. I've just always kept it straight. The only one you really have to bend is the first one in order to get it to line up with the first wheel box, and then you should be good. So let me get this last piece cut and in place, and then it all has to come apart, and then we've got to grease the entire run of cable and then reinsert it inside the tubing and do the final install for it. All right, everybody, it is the next day, and I have my last piece of tubing, and you can see I've already packed some grease in the end of it, so I'm not going to put any more grease on the cable. But basically what I do to lubricate that cable is I use one of the blue nitrile gloves. I grab just a little bit of the high temperature wheel bearing grease, get it on my fingers. I basically just slide it down the cable to lubricate the cable all the way from the motor housing to the end of the cable. And as you're sliding each of the pieces of tubing over it, that'll in turn lubricate the inside of the tubing. So I've got that all in place. I did manage to lose one of the angled spacers. They're no more than just a piece of 5/8 heater hose. So I grabbed some 5/8 heater hose. I cut a new angled spacer on the miter bandsaw over there on the bench and got another one. I was fitting that one over there, putting everything together, because I do have it that far along. I even have this intermediate shaft in between the two wheel boxes in place right now. But as I was putting that one in place, it dropped off of the wheel box and went to places unknown. I cannot find it. I thought it dropped on the ground. It didn't drop on the ground. I searched every inch of the back of the engine compartment. It's not there. So it must have hit the ground, bounced somewhere, and it's underneath one of the toolboxes somewhere. I'm not going to go ahead and spend the rest of the day looking for it. It was just more simple to make a new one. So that's all ready to go. I'm in the process of getting this next wheel box in place, and then that last piece of tubing that we've got over here, and you can see I've got a vacuum cap on the end of it, and that's just to keep any grease that may liquefy over the coming years from kind of oozing out the end. But that's it for now. I'm going to go ahead, get that all in place, and then once it's ready to test, which will probably be tomorrow night when I get home from work, I'll grab the camera and I'll show you not the wipers working, but at least the wheel boxes working, and hopefully get the wiper blades installed tomorrow as well. So I'll catch up with you tomorrow. All right, everybody, new day. Worked last night until I got all of the wheel boxes, the tubing, the cable, and everything in place. The one thing I haven't done is I haven't tightened up the the nuts on top of the wheel boxes. So there's still some movement in the wheel boxes themselves on both sides. But I do have it far enough along that we can turn the key on, hit the switch, and you can see that they are indeed working. So both sides. Now, this is the time that I always check them before I get everything tightened up for the last time, because I want to make sure, one, that there's no binding in the cable. Now, you'll hear the gear mechanism and the cable interacting. It's normal. And that always resonates through the top of the cowl. So it's normal. So don't worry about that. Just make sure that you lubricate the cable and the tubing properly so that there's no chance of anything getting bound up. And then make sure that your tubing is run as smoothly as possible. Meaning don't try to bend everything like all in one shot. If you have the piece that first comes out of the motor is about 7-8 inches long. So try to make that curve as gentle as possible from the motor housing to the first wheel box. You don't want to make a tight bend at the start of that tubing and a tight bend at the end in order to make it all line up. Try to gently make that curve from the motor housing up. The tubing between the two wheel boxes is pretty straight. When all was said and done, I think I just put a tiny little bend in each side just to make it line up a little bit better. And the piece that I have running out past the second wheel box, which is the driver's side wheel box, is about 6 inches long. And had I run it straight, it would have been bouncing against the bottom of the body right here. And so I just put a little bit of a bend on it, just to kind of angle it down, kind of to follow the contour of the body right there. And it's fine. So what I'm going to work on tonight is I'm going to work on getting those wheel boxes tightened up. And so what that's going to entail is it's going to require me to get these washers as close to centered underneath these angled pieces as I possibly can before I tighten down the nuts. And then you don't need to tighten these nuts up like super duper tight. You just have to tighten them enough that the wheel boxes don't move. The cable and the tubing underneath is held in very tight, meaning you're going to tighten those set screws on the back of the wheel boxes pretty much as tight as you can get them so they're not going to come loose. And that holds everything in place and allows that cable to move back and forth and not allow the gear to skip. And that's what you really want to make sure doesn't happen, because if the gear skips, the wipers will get out of sequence and one of them will undoubtedly come down and start slapping on the paint. And so that's a bad day when that happens. So let me go ahead, get this all squared away. Probably what we'll do tomorrow night is when I come out to the shop, we'll install the wiper blades on it and we'll throw some socks over the tops of the blades just so that they'll move back and forth, and we'll test them for one final time. All right, home from work, next day. Got the windshield wiper arms and blades attached, and we're about ready to test these. I just didn't want to go into the house and get a pair of socks, so I've got some paper towels underneath the blades, so they'll go across the windshield without any chattering between the rubber and the windshield. I believe I've already got the key on, and we can go ahead and turn the switch. And test them. So they are working just as they are supposed to. Go ahead and turn those off. Well, that's no good. All right, I don't know what I'm going to do, because I farted around for so long this week putting these wipers in that I've run out of time. And if I don't get the video up today, it's not going to get up this week. So we had a problem with these, what we thought were the wiper switches, or the wiper switch when we first got it. So we ordered 2 new switches, one of which we got a new one, and that wasn't it. It ended up, there's a contact switch inside the wiper motor itself, which means I've got to pull the wipers completely back out of the car now, because that's really the only way the motor comes out. And I'm going to have to open up the wiring portion of that wiper motor and examine that contact switch again, and see if I can't fix it and put this all back together. So I guess this isn't the end of our wiper saga. We'll update you guys next week on what I found and how I fixed it, if I fixed it. And I don't know. I've never left a video like this, so this is uncharted territory. So I'm a little bit more than upset right now. I think I'm just going to take the rest of the evening off, but I do have to get the video up. So sorry guys. I wish I could have shown you them self-parking. They have self-parked every time that I've tested them up until now. And now you can see when I turn the key off, they'll stop. But as soon as I turn the key back on, no matter what the switch position is in, the wipers keep moving. And the self-park feature of these uses that circuit to park to park the wipers. So I'm assuming the contact switch is stuck. So, oh well. If you're enjoying the content here, as crappy as it may be, please do the like, the share, the subscribe, all that kind of stuff. We'll see you next time, hopefully with an update on the wipers. Have a great day.